Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most critical and honestly, one of the most tested parts of the entire CPMAI lifecycle. We're talking about phase 2, data understanding. And we're zeroing in on that very first task, collect initial data. If you get this right, your project has a real fighting chance. But if you get it wrong, well, you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure from the start.
I mean, think about it for a second. Would you ever promise someone a giant, magnificent Lego castle before you even peeked inside the box to see how many bricks you have? Of course not, right? That sounds absolutely insane. But you'd be shocked how often this exact thing happens in AI projects. A PM promises a castle, but they've never actually opened the toy box to see if they're working with 10 bricks or 10,000. That toy box, that's your data. This whole phase is about one thing, checking your supplies before you even think about building. So, to make sure you're totally prepped for the exam, we're going to run through a little gauntlet. First, we'll look at the map, see where this all fits. Then, we'll hit the high-yield facts you absolutely have to know. After that, we'll uncover the common traps that trip people up, run through a quick scenario drill, and I'll give you some memory hooks to make it all stick. And then, a super fast recap. Sound good? Let's go.
First up, the map. Why do we start here? Because on the CPMAI exam, context is king. You have to know where you are in the project lifecycle to have any hope of knowing what the correct next step is. It's that simple.
And here it is, the 6-phase CPMAI lifecycle. We are laser-focused on phase 2, data understanding. Now, the most important thing to notice here is its location. It comes right after you figured out the business problem in phase 1, but, and this is so crucial, it comes before you do any data cleaning or labeling or changing anything in phase 3. Seriously, just understanding that positioning is the key to like half the questions on this topic. So why does this matter so much? Because phase 2 is this massive go, no-go checkpoint. I want you to think of it like this. You're opening the fridge to see what ingredients you've got. Are any of them spoiled? Are you missing something critical? You are just looking. You are not cooking the meal yet. And according to senior project managers, skipping this step, well, that's what causes something like 80% of all AI project failures. It's a huge deal. All right, let's move on. Now that we know where we are, let's talk about the high-yield facts you absolutely have to have memorized. This is your core toolkit for the exam. This table really lays it all out beautifully. On the left, you've got your inputs, basically your plan from phase 1. Now look at the key activities in the middle. Collect, describe, explore, and verify. Notice those verbs? They're all about investigation. They're passive. You're assessing, you're not changing. And what comes out the other end? The outputs? It's not a model, it's reports. And most importantly, it's a decision. The data readiness assessment, which leads to a formal go or no-go call on the project. Okay, now for the fun part, the insider knowledge. Let's talk about the common traps the exam will set for you, the mistakes that, well, junior PMs tend to make because they haven't really absorbed the discipline of this phase. And here it is, trap number 1. This is the big one, folks, confusing understanding with preparation. Let me give you an example. If you are identifying that, say, 20% of the values in a column are missing, and you're documenting that fact, you are correctly in phase 2. But the moment you start filling in those missing values, bam, you've just crossed the line into phase 3, data preparation. The exam is going to test you on this distinction over and over again. And this is exactly why it's so important. In the real world, you're going to feel pressure from stakeholders to just jump ahead and start building something. But this quote from a senior PM says it all. Your job as the PM is to enforce the discipline of the process. This phase isn't just annoying bureaucracy. It's the actual foundation of a successful project.
Okay, a few other quick traps to watch for. 1, forgetting to look outside your own company's databases for data. 2, ignoring the unique and often limited data needs of models that have to run on devices out in the field. 3, failing to plan how you're going to split your data for training and testing before you even collect it. And of course, the most basic error of all, just assuming the data is there and it's good to go without ever actually looking at it.
Okay, that's enough theory. You know, the best way to really lock this stuff in is to practice. So let's run through a couple of exam-style scenarios. I want you to try to answer it in your head before I give you the answer. Ready? All right, here's the first one. A project manager's team is documenting the format, size, and schema of a new data set. They're also identifying inconsistencies. So what phase are they in?
The answer is phase 2, data understanding. And why? The key words are documenting and identifying. They're describing the data and verifying its quality.
They haven't started fixing it, they haven't started cleaning it, they haven't started changing a thing. That is the bright shining line between Phase 2 and Phase 3.
Okay, let's try a tougher one. You've done your homework and you've found a huge quality problem. 70% of your sensor data is just missing. But a key stakeholder comes to you and says, just push forward, we'll figure it out. What is the correct CPMAI action to take next?
The correct answer here is to halt the project and make a formal no-go recommendation. This is your job. As the project manager, you are the guardian of the process. Pushing forward would be a colossal waste of time and money, and it totally violates the entire purpose of having a Phase 2 quality gate in the first place.
Great work on those. Now let's wrap this up with some simple, powerful memory hooks to make sure these concepts are glued into your brain come exam day. Okay, here's a fantastic acronym that comes from the online community, SOURCE. It is a perfect little checklist for your Phase 2 activities. You scope the data needs, check ownership and licensing, understand the formats, define requirements, collect your initial samples, and evaluate the gaps. If you can just remember SOURCE, you'll remember the core tasks of data understanding. It's a lifesaver. And for those moments during the exam, when you need to recognize a pattern fast, use these if-then rules. Think of them as cheat codes. If the question talks about identifying or describing a data issue, then the answer is almost certainly Phase 2. If it's about fixing, changing, or labeling data, then you're in Phase 3. And if you see the term data readiness assessment, your mind should immediately snap to it being a key deliverable from Phase 2. All right, let's bring it all home. Time for a 1-minute rapid-fire recap. This is your final checklist for totally mastering data understanding. Okay, here are the top 3 things you absolutely must remember. Number 1, Phase 2 is about checking the fridge, not cooking the meal. Number 2, the number 1 trap on the exam is confusing understanding with preparation. If you're fixing data, you're in Phase 3, period. And number 3, your main job in this phase, your key deliverable, is to produce that data readiness assessment that leads to a clear, definitive go or no-go decision. So I'll leave you with one final thought to really anchor all of this in your mind while you study. Just keep asking yourself this one question. What is the real difference between identifying a data gap and fixing it? The answer to that question is the very heart of Phase 2, and honestly, it's the key to your success on the exam. Good luck with your studies.